Chapter 1: Stardust Rogue. The patched hull of the Stardust Rogue hummed ominously in the void of space, its ragged panels stitched with the scars of countless skirmishes. Inside, the air was tangy with the electrical scent of ozone and slightly sweet, disturbingly reminiscent of Box's last attempt at cooking. "All right, team, gather up." Cyrus's voice echoed sharply across the cramped common area, pulling everyone's attention toward him. Under the flickering light, his lean figure was a pillar against chaos, a rogue captain in every sense of the word. Schlara, her bright eyes scanning a data pad, pushed off from where she leaned against the wall. Halting beside Cyrus, she tucked a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear, her posture all business. "What's the mission this time?" she asked, a hint of excitement in her voice. "Got a tip about a small Union frigate transporting a high-priority package through the Kepler belt," replied Cyrus, his fingers drumming on the metal table. "We intercept, grab the goods, and jet out before they know what hit 'em." A chorus of nods followed, each crew member mentally preparing for another dive into danger. That is, except for Box, who was idly inspecting his metallic fingers as if noticing them for the first time. Jax fluttered to the front, his wings giving a small buzz. "And what exactly is in this mysterious package?" he asked, antennae twitching with curiosity. "That, my friend, remains part of the mystery." Cyrus grinned, which somehow didn't reassure anyone. Burke, massive and unflappable, crossed his arms, his deep voice filling the room. "As long as it ain't another box of those damned energy critters. Still finding them nibblers in my boots." Laughter broke out, easing the tension, while Inkwell, ever the scholar, adjusted the settings on his suit. An analysis would be prudent before exposure. We wouldn't want a repeat of the Delviox incident. "Noted, Inkwell," Cyrus said, nodding appreciatively. "Now, let's get to our stations. Jax, plot a course. Schlara, you and Burke are on weapons. Box, you're with me in the engine room, and try to keep up, won't you?" "Certainly, C. Checking memory banks," Box replied, his voice glitching mid-sentence. As the crew dispersed, the ship's engines began to hum louder, a prelude to the adrenaline yet to come. Burke patted Box's shoulder reassuringly as they followed Cyrus. Approaching the Stellar Union frigate was like dancing with death. It loomed large against the star-studded black, its cannons silent but undoubtedly ready to sing their fiery songs. In the cockpit, Cyrus's hands moved deftly over the controls, eyes narrowed in focus. Jax hovered near, watching the radar. "We've got multiple blips, Captain. Looks like we're not the only ones interested in this party," Jax said, a note of worry threading through his usually jovial tone. "Those must be the Union reinforcements. Didn't think they'd have backup this quick," Cyrus muttered. Then, louder, "Burke, Schlara, prepare to engage!" The ship shuddered as they neared, the sound of the charging weapons melding with the growing tension. Schlara's voice was calm, controlled as she relayed coordinates to Burke, who responded with grunts and the occasional, "Got it! Firing!" Then, chaos erupted. The Union frigate responded with a barrage of laser fire, streaks of deadly light piercing the void. Cyrus swerved, a maneuver that was both reckless and necessary, the gap between life and death narrowing with each passing second. "We need that package!" Cyrus shouted over the din as another blast rocked the Stardust Rogue. In the engine room, Box was a flurry of activity, cables and tools in hand. "Memory error, I mean engine boost!" he screamed comically as he frantically worked to reroute power. The Stardust Rogue lurched violently as the booster engaged, hurtling them dangerously close to the frigate. "Now, Schlara!" Cyrus's command cut through the turmoil. With a triumphant yell, Schlara deployed their secret weapon, a grappling beam that latched onto the frigate, pulling the rogue ship alongside it. Burke was already in the airlock, his massive frame suited up for the quick snatch and grab. Minutes felt like hours as Burke jetted across the small divide, breached the frigate, and returned with a nondescript metallic case. The moment his boots hit the deck of their ship, Cyrus punched their exit coordinates into the nav. "Hold on," he yelled, his voice tight with panic. "We're going to make a blind jump." This was their surefire way to stay untraceable. His fingers flew over the console, bringing the warp drive online with a sequence of urgent keystrokes. The device roared to life, its deep hum filling the cockpit. The ship's jury-rig power systems flickered, the lights dimming as the energy-hungry warp drive devoured the generator's output. Before them, a warp gate of swirling crimson light engulfed the ship, its brilliance casting eerie shadows across the deck, the ship winking out of existence in a flash. When they emerged from the warp gate, the sight was anything but welcoming. A planet emerged on the horizon, its greenish-yellow surface sprawling in an unwelcoming, jagged expanse. The control panel flickered and dimmed, the ship's damaged systems groaning in defiance as they fought against the planet's relentless gravitational pull. Cyrus's voice was grim as he prepared them for a crash landing. "Strap in. This is going to get rougher." And rough it was. The Corvette destroyer's light frame groaned and protested as it broke through the planet's atmosphere, metal screeching against the uncontrolled descent. Then an abrupt halt, a final groan of stressed alloys and stillness. "We're alive!" Inkwell's voice crackled through the ship's communication channels, a statement that seemed to surprise even him. "Yeah," Cyrus replied, pushing himself out of his chair, his body aching. "Now let's see what kind of mess we've landed ourselves in this time." As the dust settled and the clanks and groans of the settling ship echoed around them, the crew slowly unstrapped themselves. The crash hadn't been gentle, but it had been survivable, which was about the most anyone could ask for in their line of work. Cyrus mused silently, considering that had they been a grander vessel, they would have been torn asunder by the planet's ravenous gravity well. A cascade of memories washed over him, times when the ship had miraculously defied insurmountable odds. He cherished this ship with an intensity that bordered on reverence, and he knew he would never forsake it. "Everyone okay?" Cyrus called out, looking around the bridge, which was now at a slight tilt due to the angle at which the ship had landed. "Still in one piece," Schlara confirmed, rubbing her neck as she took stock of the surroundings through a porthole. Burke nodded, his large frame making the already cramped space feel smaller. "The kitchen's a ghost of its former self, Captain, a shadow of culinary chaos. And the engine? It's a silent siren, yearning for the touch of skilled hands to revive its melodic hum," he said, his eyes scanning the panels that told the tale of the ship's wounds. Jack stumbled onto the bridge, his mandibles clutching his mid-thorax. Struggling for breath, he tried to get Cyrus's attention. "Captain," he gasped, pain evident in his voice. Cyrus looked up, his gaze meeting Jax's emotionless, bug-like eyes, betraying a deep pain. Green ooze seeped from beneath Jax's hands, signaling an injury. Despite Jax's insectoid resilience, a puncture wound could be fatal, as his kind almost invariably bled to death. Cyrus hurried over to Jax and slipped Jax's arm over his neck to help him up. "I've got you," Cyrus reassured him. Cyrus slammed his fist on the ship's intercom button, his voice a blend of urgency and command as it echoed through the corridors. "Doc, we need you on the bridge." A tremor of desperation slipped in as he added, "Jax is wounded," before abruptly severing the connection. Moments later, Inkwell, the ship's trusty doctor, emerged from the lift. His pristine, well-kept suit glimmered under the overhead lights, and his domed glass helmet showcased the octopus held within. One of his tentacle arms cradled a sleek box marked with the universal medical symbol of a red cross. Inkwell's suit projected his translated voice. "Lay him down on his back slowly." Tugging Jax's hand aside, Inkwell meticulously inspected the wounded area. "Thankfully, no debris in the wound," Inkwell murmured with palpable relief. Drawing a sleek metal plate from the box along with a rivet gun, he carefully positioned the plate over the wound, fastening it securely to Jax's thorax with several sharp, biting rivets. Jax winced, groaning in pain as each new rivet pierced his chitin skeleton. "What's the matter, Doc? No gold-plated upgrades this time?" he quipped, attempting to lift the heavy shroud of panic with a shaky smile. Cyrus chuckled mischievously. "Yeah, next time, my friend. We'll have you shimmering in gold for the ladies." Jax's chuckle quickly dissolved into a raspy cough as he clutched at his newly acquired appendage. "So live like a king for a day before becoming someone's dinner?" he quipped, his voice thick with irony as he struggled to his feet. "I suppose I could pawn off this useless hunk of metal, maybe auction it off to one of those big corporations for some prime advertisement space back home." Inkwell, ever the observant eye in the storm of chaos, shifted the conversation with a keen edge. "The atmospheric entry appears to have pushed the cooling system beyond its limits. It's utterly charred and lifeless." With meticulous precision, He nestled each piece of equipment into the sleek confines of the white box, its polished surface gleaming under the dim light. On my way to the bridge, I caught a fleeting glimpse of it. A slick pool of coolant had begun to form, snaking around the base of the injector and reflecting the dim lights overhead. Cyrus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "All right, first things first, we need to check our cargo. Burke, help me with the crate. Everyone else, start on damage assessment and report back. We need to know the extent of our situation." They moved to the cargo hold, where the mysterious case they had risked everything to capture sat securely fastened. Cyrus unlocked it, revealing its contents under Burke's watchful eyes. A device thrumming with a gentle azure glow, delicate circuits tangled across its surface like a celestial spider's web, interlacing patterns of shimmering brilliance. "Any idea what it is?" Burke asked, peering over Cyrus's shoulder. "Not a clue, but it's obviously valuable. Let's keep it safe until we can figure out more," Chorus decided, locking the case again. "Now, let's see about not dying on this forsaken rock." Cyrus scrutinized the computer's navigation system, but his efforts were in vain as the screen flashed error messages. "No way to know where we are," he muttered to himself. Despite his desperate efforts to circumvent the glitches, the system spiraled into an unplanned reboot. Frustrated, he smacked the display unit, muttering an expletive from his homeworld's colorful lexicon before resigning to the inevitable. As they departed the dimly lit cargo hold, Burke's gaze shifted to the kitchen, now a tangled mess of shattered crockery and overturned pots. "I'll get started on putting this chaos in order," he said, stepping over the debris. "Hopefully our rations survived." Midway through, Box's voice crackled over the ship's intercom. Captain, you might want to see this." There was an unusual seriousness to his tone that drew Cyrus immediately to the cockpit. "What is it, Box?" Cyrus asked, stepping beside the droid who was observing something on the radar. "I've picked up some unusual signatures on radar," Box replied, pointing at the screen where several blips were miles west of their position. "Can you identify them?" Cyrus's voice dripped with curiosity, his brow furrowing as he folded his arms tightly, striking a pose of intense concentration. "Not exactly, but they're not sending any Union IFF codes. I'll search the Box reported, his screen flickering erratically, a side effect of his compromised memory circuits. "Captain," Schlara's voice crackled through the intercom, an eerie echo threading through the static. "The lower corridor to the ramp is submerged, and there's a noxious stench rising with the water." Her words lingered before the intercom fizzled out, an ominous harbinger of failing systems. Approaching the viewport in the front of the bridge, Cyrus peers out to swamp land filled with black willow trees and button bushes, the long grass and large patches of moss. He knew what planet they were on, as it finally dawned on him. Planet Kamomia, belonging to Countess Isadora Ravenshadow, a lord on the edge of the Free Republic territory. The silence shattered as Schlara and Burke strode into the bridge. With the entire crew now assembled, Cyrus called for status reports. Schlara initiated the briefing with her assessment of the engine and power system. "The engine is intact, but 2 of the 4 regulators are fried," she said, exhaling a weary sigh. The system's emergency shutdown override kicked in, deactivating everything. She concluded as Box interrupted. His robotic voice crackled through the first few words before smoothing out. "The regulators can be repaired, but I'll need to disengage them." He pulled up a datapad, his eyes scanning the glowing numbers and figures before passing it to Cyrus. "It will take about 2 days of work. However," he added gravely, "we've got a coolant leak, and without that system operational, the regulators will just overheat and burn out again." The situation was only going to get worse as Burke added, "We've lost some rations." He held his hand up, all 5 fingers splayed wide, and slowly began curling them one by one as he counted to himself. "We've got 27 days' worth of rations remaining," he concluded, his voice heavy with dread, each finger folding like the closing of a grim tally. Cyrus turned to Inkwell, his brow furrowed with concern. "Inkwell, what about our medical supplies? Do we have any left to spare?" "We haven't lost any medical supplies," his voice box chattered, the metallic tone struggling to convey his concern. "But when you say spare," he hesitated, locking eyes with Cyrus, "is someone else hurt?" Turning to the window overlooking the undulating emerald sea of swamp foliage, he spoke with a note of resolve. I know where we are, and we might need to trade our medical goods for spare parts. He turned to the crew once more, his expression grave. We're on Kamomia, just outside the edge of Countess Isadora Ravenshadow's lands. Schlara's eyes flashed with a blend of anger and worry. That wench of a woman won't trade with pirates, she hissed, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. Burke's thick brows furrowed as he stepped forward. Captain, I have to protest this idea you're about to propose, he rumbled, his deep voice carrying a note of urgency. His massive hands moved up, palms out, silently pleading for the conversation to stop. Cyrus's expression softened, aware that his next words would likely meet resistance. So, we don't reveal that we're pirates, he mused, considering their apprehensions. Instead, we present ourselves as wary travelers with a malfunctioning warp drive. As he spoke, a web of cunning plans began to weave itself in his mind. Box added, his memory finally sparking back to life, I can rewrite our signature to mimic a Republic IFF code. He pivoted to a worn ship console, its flickering display stubbornly unresponsive to his insistent commands. Just as soon as I fix our cursed systems. See, we'll get through this, just like always. He smiled, leaning in and giving her a gentle squeeze on the shoulder. Remember when we barely made it out of Verdun? This is nothing compared to that. And you know what's the best part? His eyes sparkled with excitement as he glanced toward the cargo hold. We've got a potential giant payday sitting right there. His gift for rallying his crew stemmed from an enchanting blend of noble charm and innate leadership. Each crew member, aware of this, would follow him to the very brink of existence. He had navigated them through dire straits before. There was no cause for doubt now. With steely resolve, each took to their task, striving to mend the ship with determined hands. Ahead lay the untamed expanse of the wild swamp, a realm of the unknown beckoning them to another grand adventure.